But in the meantime, President Joe Biden said Wednesday that he had just made another phone call to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and it reiterated the unshakable U.S. support. The State Department said that the known death toll of U.S. citizens in the violence has risen to at least 22. So far, an unspecified number of American hostages are also been believed to be in the hands of Hamas, and a departure from usual U.S. calls for restraint when violence erupts overseas. President Biden and his administration have made clear they support Israel's right to an overwhelming response. In a speech on Tuesday, Biden showed visible emotion as he addressed the Hamas attack, which included killings of children, music festival revelers, and other civilians, and has triggered a war in which the death toll is steadily rising on both sides.
And this moment, we have to be crystal clear. There is no justification for terrorism, no excuse. And the type of terrorism that was exhibited here was just beyond the pale, beyond the pale. As I said yesterday, my commitment to Israel's security and the safety of the Jewish people is unshakable. The United States has Israel's back, and we're going to be working on this all through today and beyond.
Now, joining me live to discuss this is Dennis Nthumbi, a governance analyst and security expert who joins live from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. A warm welcome to you, Dennis, and thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, Dennis, in the wake of this invasion, we saw the African Union release a statement which mentioned that the illegal occupation and the way Israelis have treated Palestinians was a cause, and it needs to be addressed in finding a solution to the conflict. We also saw different statements. Kenya's president did say he fully supported Israel, and it almost looked like a copy and paste statement from the United States of America. So we've seen different geographical positions, geopolitical positions, even within the African continent. And this, what's your analysis of the current conflict between Israel and Palestine? And is it possible for, why do we seem to have a divided continent when it comes to, which side we choose to stand with as Africans?
Thank you very much for having me on air. And it will be important for us to separate issues. And it will be vital for us, first of all, to define this as an act of terror, not an act of liberation. And as Africa, we must be united in condemning acts of terror and separating issues on the table. And I think if you ask me, and anybody who has visited Israel, they will be aware that Israel has lived cohesively with the citizens of Palestine. In fact, if anybody would care to know and look at the statistics, they will know that Israel has an Arab population of 2 million plus, which essentially established its workforce. And these are men and women and children who basically earn their living and they live in Israel. If you also care to know, is that Israel provides water, food, and social amenities to Palestine. And so we have to establish facts on the table and cease to politicize and use terrorism as an act of liberation. This is an act of terror, and Hamas has no legitimate cause to front. Hamas' only interest is the extermination of everyone in the world who does not hold dear their jihadist perspective. And the interest of Hamas is essentially to establish the caliphate globally. Hamas has been extinguishing Christians in Palestine. So if you don't agree to their dictates, even if you're Palestine and you don't subject yourself to the submissiveness of their jihadist doctrines, they will kill you. So this is a terrorist outfit, and we must call out acts of terror. This is a provocation the world over to citizens who stand for peace and who stand for liberty and who stand for tolerance at the end of the day. And therefore, if then we have established that Hamas has no legitimate cause to front for the people of Palestine, then we must seek to advance the destruction of Hamas so that the people of Palestine can be liberated. It will be important to establish that Hamas itself has been using women and children of Palestine as human shields to further their jihadist cause. There are 5 types of jihadism that they've been using. But this particular one is one of the worst form that they have meted to the people of Israel for the longest. You have 1,000 plus people who are dead, and essentially we must establish this as an act of terror and cease to depoliticize this by any nature.
Now, Dennis, could you kindly provide an analysis of the historical context that has contributed to the ongoing conflict?
There is no justification for terrorism. There is no contribution on anything whatsoever. And you can't say that I am not going to sit here and legitimize the heinous terror of Hamas to sit on anything that champions for the interest of Palestine at the end of the day. The Palestinian people have the PA, and it should be the PA that champions for the two-state solution at the end of the day. But Palestine is backed by terror outfits the world over. Now we have seen an affront against Israel by Hezbollah, which is a Lebanese-led terror outfit. Is Hezbollah also having interest in Gaza? We have seen other nations that fund terrorism at the end of the day. Do they have interest in Gaza? Are they Palestinians? So this is a nefarious collaboration the world over that has desired to see the extinction of the Jewish people simply because they're Jewish.
Now, Dennis, looking at, you said there's no justification for this. Hamas is a terrorist group, and the civilized world should condemn this. I'm happy you're from Kenya. And Kenya did have the Mau Mau group who were opposed to British colonial rule in Kenya. They were put in extermination camps. They were degraded. Many of them were killed by the British because they were fighting for what they called a legitimate independent struggle for the Republic of Kenya. Now, looking at the Palestinian question, since 1948, the Nakba, the expulsion of Palestinians from their historical homeland, do you think the fact that Gaza is an open-air prison, 2 million people stuck in this densely populated place, and we've started seeing the reactions from Israel, which a lot of people have described as disproportionate. The Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan did mention this. We've seen the war crimes being committed, indiscriminate bombing. Does it matter as long as Hamas has done this? So we need to respond in this way. It's all gloves off for Israel to commit anything. Do the victims, the innocents caught up in this senseless conflict between Israel and the Palestinians and Hamas, do they count? Do the Palestinian children, which we've seen videos and images of the victims, does it matter in this war? Because we've heard statements from the United States and the European Union, and no one, apart from the African Union, did talk about, looking at the reason, the cause of this in the first place, which is the subjugation and the colonization of Palestine, the occupation which is ongoing, which has been in Gaza for the last 16 plus years. How do you respond to that?
First of all, the question about the occupation of Israel in Gaza has been a phantom narrative that doesn't have a strong basis whatsoever.
I mean, the reality is there. All the United Nations Security Council resolutions are there, and the facts speak for themselves. So you can't say it's a phantom. This is the reality which the people of Gaza live in.
We are all championing the two-state solution. And I think the fact is that you cannot legitimize Hamas as a liberation group. We all know that Hamas is equal to Boko Haram. Is Boko Haram a liberation group?
No, beyond, let's talk about the victims. Let's talk about the war crimes, the churches, the indiscriminate bombings that are going on. That's my question.
No, you know, that your question essentially, well, you're asking and providing facts which are essentially phantom, they're not true. And I say that Hamas is a terror group, and we must be able to separate issues. Hamas cannot be matched to Mau Mau. Hamas can only be outfit in Nigeria that is terrorizing Nigerians, and it's Boko Haram. Do they have any legitimate reason to kill, maim, and kidnap? Not so. They are driven by hate. They're driven by the jihadist, philosophy. At the end of the day, that they believe that somebody who doesn't conform to their religious fanaticism, at the end of the day, is subject to slaughter until they submit themselves to those doctrines. And we have to discuss this from a terrorism perspective. This is absolute jihadism. We cannot, again, politicize the death of 1,000 plus Jews to look like it's some type of liberation, political liberation.
Yeah, but the innocent Palestinians that have been caught up in this, do their lives matter? Do their lives matter?
All lives matter.
Do international war conventions, the ban on certain munitions, do they matter? The indiscriminate bombing of Palestinian territory, does it matter?
The Israel government has a right to defend itself. The Israel government and the world over has the right to destroy a terror outfit. When 9/11 happened, the United States went for the terrorists. The Israel government must go for these terrorists and destroy Hamas. The destruction of Hamas will liberate the Palestinian region at the end of the day.
Regardless of how disproportionate this response is. But I wish we could go on, but we're out of time. Thank you very much, Dennis Nthumbi, for your time. Look forward to discussing this issue with you some other time. Thank you.
Thank you.